Warning signs, behavioral patterns, school security. This morning, investigators and policymakers looking at what could have been done to prevent such a horrific tragedy in Texas. Joining us now to break down the latest survey that we are seeing right now on mental health with children, clinical psychologist Dr. Jacquelyn Flood. Dr. Flood, welcome to the National Desk. First, though, I want to talk about this. Parents right now facing their own fears, sending their kids off to school the day after this senseless killing in Texas. How do you process this with your own child on a day like today, the day after?
Honesty is really the best policy when you're processing a tragedy like this, even if you have to say, I don't know. The kids who are the most vulnerable are generally the most negatively affected by news like this also. So don't lie to them. They need to know they can trust you. Just find that balance between overflooding your kids with too much information and withholding those crucial details because the reality is so scary for them.
Yeah. And what are some of the behavioral patterns and warning signs of killers like this who go in schools?
So there's a lot of widely held beliefs about the profile of a student shooter, but school safety experts say that acts of school violence have been carried out by attackers of all races, ages, disciplinary histories, and family backgrounds. So it's so difficult to know what those things are going to be.
So there's not hallmarks that parents, teachers, and students can look for?
So really, they want to look for anything that stands out to them that's out of the ordinary, that shows any of those potential risks, and just making sure that you speak up when there are things that you're unsure about or things that you might think might be some of those warning signs.
The mental health of the shooter and one aspect investigators digging into right now, and an organization that's been looking at the mental health of children and the impact this pandemic has had is an organization you're involved with, and they found some devastating statistics in their report. In fact, they found 26% of parents reported their children being suicidal. 47% of parents saw an increase in their child's anxiety in large gatherings. 20% of children have experienced sleep disorders. 17% have developed eating disorders. 42% of parents said their children seemed unhappier than they were before the pandemic. So what are your takeaways from this survey? What stood out to you the most?
Yeah. So honestly, this is really the most disturbing existential change in childhood mental health that I've witnessed in my entire career of practicing pediatric behavioral health care. We have a really clear childhood mental health crisis happening in the U.S. right now, and it's clear that we need to take action immediately. We need to address the societal problems that are going on and really help our children. So that's really the takeaway message, that we've got to jump in and help these kids.
And talk to us about the impact COVID restrictions have had on a child's mental health, because we have heard this from the very beginning of the pandemic, how this was going to affect our children in the long run. What should educators and policymakers keep in mind going forward?
So whether kids are facing trauma because of the disruption of COVID or tragedies, the loss of a family member, or everyday anxieties about the virus, they need more support now than ever. It's been a long 2 years for all of us, and kids have spent years of their lives away from family, friends, classrooms, and fun. They really need fun in their lives. And even before the pandemic, far too many children were burdened under the weight of unaddressed mental health issues. This is a proven social and emotional burden of masking as well, particularly in young children. They benefit from seeing their teachers' facial expressions and having those interactions. So there's definitely a big impact.
What should parents do if they find their child acting differently? Are there patterns that warning signs parents should look for?
So they really want to watch for anything that's out of the ordinary, anything that's that sign of causing distress or dysfunction, something that's not typical of their child. And they really want to make sure that they get their children help sooner rather than later.
All right, Dr. Jacquelyn Flood, we appreciate you joining us this morning here on the National Desk. Have a good one.
Absolutely. Thank you.